All right, and I believe we are live with this
Cool.
Blues Chat number 4 here at Harp and Guitar, People and Music. So I want to welcome everybody once again and thank you for joining us here for our Blues Chat.
All right, and I believe we are live with this
And there's our sound check. Sounds like we're sounding all right. So once again, of course, yours truly, Whiskey here, and joining me as always, my good friend and partner in crime, Monk Music. How you doing today, Monk?
Doing very well. How are you, Whiskey?
I'm doing fine as frogs hair, my man. Fine as frogs hair. Thanks for asking.
Good. I believe you've got a lot of hot weather. Sorry.
What's that? The hot weather? Yeah, it's been hot.
You have a lot of hot weather.
Yeah, it's been very warm here, very hot. But hey, it's summer, so I'll take it while it lasts because summers around here are pretty short. 2-3 months maybe of good warm weather. So I'll take it while it lasts for sure. But you've had a busy week.
Sorry.
You've had a busy week there, enjoying Buddy Guy's new album and learning a bunch of new licks and just sort of some tasty bits.
Absolutely. I've been listening to End of the Line, and I've obviously put out those videos this week.
Mm-hmm.
I'll do more of those and upload them this weekend. But the End of the Line, track 14, is what was that? Oh, at the End of the Line, track 14 is a corker. I'm using it almost as a manual that I never had in the early 80s when I started listening to things like the Garbage Man Blues. And it's interesting. I always find it difficult to feel such a fraud, like I said to you many times, because I can't name many blues tunes really overall. Like even from EC was here, and I know I've played that to death, because of listening to the guitar, purely listening to the guitar. And of course, you can't play like that unless you listen. So I've obviously listened to lots, but naming it and what the songs are, I feel like it. Do you know what I mean? I feel like a complete fraud. But this week it's been glorious watching how Buddy Guy mixes the major and the minor blues. These riffs, they're corking.
Well, let me ask you something real quickly about that, the major and minor, and how he changes and switches back and forth. Because we were sort of discussing a little bit of that last night, you and I, real quickly, and you were sort of touched on it a bit. And we were trying to figure out when he's doing that change. Now, is he doing it as the response or the answer with the call and answer? So is he doing, let's say, a major chord, let's say I don't know. He's doing a major chord. I don't know anything about music theory, very obviously, but is he doing, let's say, for example, the call, he's doing in a major, and then the answer or the response, is he playing that in the minor? Is that what he's doing?
I'm not sure because he's using the... Obviously, with one note, you can't tell. And that's the A note, so that doesn't make any odds. When he gets into the start of it... Now that is definitely a minor-based pentatonic because you take that's the minor scale.
Right.
But the second one, that's on the 4 chord, the D chord. And the last one to turn out the light. That's definitely minor. In fact, that's based on an A minor chord. The next one, the last one to put up a fight. That's major scale. So he's definitely using the A major blues on the second chord, which is the 4. They call it 4 because if you think of A, B, C, D, E, there are five chords. We'll call them, I'm not going to get into the fancy names like minors and majors and sevenths and stuff, but you've got A, B, C, D, E. So the first one's an A chord, your second one's a B, your third one's a C, and your 4, which is for the blues, is a D. So with A, you've got a D and an E. So the starter chord is A. I don't know if that's major and minor because that's quite new to us, that. So that's his first riff, and the second one. So it's the first one. And it changes to a D, which is the 4 chord. And we're back to the A, the 1 chord, which is the A. Which one's that? That's and then we've got the, which is major, and his come out chord on the at the end, the turnaround, is definitely minor. That's the.
So maybe what he's doing is he's switching to the minor chords.
Pardon?
So maybe what he's doing then is he's switching to the minor chords as the answer or the response to the call in the majors. But
yeah, he's popping it up.
But he's also doing it, switching to the minor chords when he's doing the descending notes, where, you know, he's playing the, you know, that sort of the blue notes where it's gives you that sort of the more melancholy sort of downward. Again, music theory is not my thing, so I don't even know the correct terminology.
It feels right to be playing the 7th. It's just like up the line. The turnaround then goes to a major. Okay, on the 5. So this bit, that's in the minor. That's in the A.
Right.
But that's definitely minor. So just before it goes to the 5 chord, and in the second time round, it goes to the 5 chord, so it makes it an F flat. It can't be right. That's what it is. I don't know, but it's very clever, and it's particularly when he slides it. It sometimes feel like I'm at the end of the line. And the band kicks up and it's right into the major. That's the first one and the second verse.
Right.
When it gets
okay.
up to 71 and it's still going strong, is so to get it exact, you'd have to put a fairish bit of practice in. But I'm really enjoying just pulling out the riffs, you know. I mean, I've just started on the solo, which is surprise, surprise. And so on. So it's turned,
which is it's very Buddy Guy. I mean, it's definitely got his signature style laid all over it. But
and
as we were discussing just prior to going live, it's definitely peppered with a lot of those B.B. King influences that Buddy Guy always speaks to, B.B. King being one of his greatest influences and one of his good friends too. That especially that one high note in the break there. That's a B.B. King thing for sure, but Buddy uses it to great effect too, and very much I think as an homage, you know.
Well, he uses the BB box a lot as well. This if you listen to this, 3 a.m. blues, you know.
Mhm.
Except it feels to me like Buddy Guy will go. And then your BB would come in with. And then we're into BB, so Buddy Guy again. I love that riff. I've been playing it all week.
Well, I think Buddy would add a lot more notes in there, sort of, you know, between the beats or within the tempo. He,
yeah,
you know,
like
very. That's another the thing that's his style is that's a Buddy thing is.
yeah.
He'll add 3 or 4 quick little shots in there over and above what's already.
Yeah, so
version, right?
So you've got the classic, but then you've also got.
Yeah, yeah.
It goes all gentle. I'm still working that out yet, but it'll go from, you know. Got lost. Go turn to Wilco Johnson just for a second. I was exploring how to use these riffs in my own playing, you know, because I'm desperate to put a band back together to just explore the blues, you know, doesn't even have to gig, I guess, just for jamming purposes. But
sure, yeah.
I've been listening to some of the guitarists play with a pedal note to help it be a chord to provide their own backing. And there's one tune that we use over here for the snooker theme that I'd like to play properly. I don't play it properly. I sort of do a pastiche of it. You know, it's this one. It. Oh well. Hang on a minute. That's it. Hang on a minute. It's ages since. Hang on a minute. bloody hell. I'll have to practice that, folks. I'm miles out. Yeah. Oh, gotta hurt my neck. Oh, we're sitting on the settee. Oh, God, my neck's stiff as a plank now. I'm going to put the guitar down, otherwise I'll end up with it tearing me head off. Anyway, there you go. That's how to they do a sort of a pedal note to play along with themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think who played that. I could find out, I guess, if I googled it. But
earlier you were doing a little bit of the John Lee Hooker thing, the dimples that.
Oh yeah.
Now, what do you find harder to play? Do you find something like John Lee Hooker riffs tougher to play, or somebody like Buddy and BB tougher to play? I mean, obviously you could trace them back to a similar sort of root style, but they've, each one has sort of taken it and run with it and made it their own. So they're completely different sounds. I mean, Buddy and BB sound a little bit more alike, with obviously BB being a huge influence on Buddy. But John Lee Hooker's kind of a unique creature, kind of all on his own. There's really nobody else that sounds or plays like John Lee Hooker for the most part.
Yeah, well, he had a very picking, squeezing sort of style. Well, it's not at all like that. If I use my thumbnail to put the plectrum down, you get a bit more.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. Not a very subtle style, that, to be honest. That's the sort. Like that. Lots of twang. I love it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
It really ooks it one. I love it.
Well, I think a lot of what contributes to the uniqueness of John Lee Hooker's sound, it still has that aggressive sort of propulsive and percussive sound that comes out of the Delta. But with him, he sort of maintains that sort of rough around the edges, really hard driving style of blues, because when he migrated north out of the Mississippi Delta and moved up into one of the northern cities, he actually spent quite a bit of time in Detroit. He didn't go up to Chicago right away like a lot of the other guys did.
Right.
Detroit is Chicago was at that point too a very industrialized city, but Detroit even more so. So I think his style of music sort of absorbed a lot of that hard industrial, sights and sounds and smells of Detroit, and he sort of
possibly, but I
really worked that into his music,
Yeah, possibly, but I'm thinking there's another little tin pot theory as you were saying that. I'm thinking, well, amps weren't particularly loud then. Maybe. I mean, this is a big maybe, and the harder you hit it, the more you'll cut through.
Well, yeah, if you're living in a major city, a major industrial city like Detroit, I mean, all the car factories were in Detroit, right? I mean, Ford, the big three were all based out of Detroit. And that's why a lot of these migrant workers moved up to the northern cities, because they could get paid more for doing basically manual labor that wasn't at least out in the hot sun. You were working indoors for the most part. And you could make more money doing hard manual labor in a Ford plant or in a General Motors facility than you would make, in any farm in the South, right? So But yeah, he would have had to have played more aggressively and really banged on the box, as they called it, really beat on his guitar a lot louder to sort of compensate for all of the din and the noise and the that the patrons were making in these loud Detroit clubs, like right in the city.
Because it crossed my mind as well the other day that could be the case with Freddie King, because he'd got very aggressive style, very aggressive, very
yeah. Well, he's more
hard.
of a rock blues. He's like a blues rock, but more on the rock side, almost like. I like Freddie King as well, but I don't like him nearly as much as Albert King or BB King.
Because he did that, and it was very, really much harder.
Yeah,
I mean,
he
it
was a
was.
bit more of a rock.
Pardon?
He was a bit more of a rock and roll type of
Yeah. He had
blues.
a finger pick as well for upstrokes on his first finger.
Oh, okay.
An aggressive edge when he's doing. You get that straight away. You'd also get a rattle as it touched, so he had to be quite a certain player, very determined to.
Well, the other thing about Freddie King is he comes out of Texas too, right? He doesn't come out of Freddie King comes out of Texas. He doesn't come out of the Delta area like B.B. King did or Buddy Guy did, right?
That figures with the showmanship and the style.
Yeah, he would have a little bit more of a boogie woogie or a barrel house sort of a foundation to his style of blues, right?
Big man as well, by the looks of him. From what I've said, huge.
Well, and then you have Albert King, which Albert King was more soulful, right? So BB was sort of gospel and blues. Albert King was sort of soul blues, and then Freddie King was sort of blues rock, I guess, for lack of a better term.
He wore his strap on the right shoulder instead of the left, which is odd. Been having a look. This is a weird thing to do.
Yeah, but he played right-handed, though. He didn't play left. He just wore it on his other shoulder, right?
Yeah, just lobbed it on like a satchel, Yeah. A strange thing to do. I've never seen anybody else do that.
I think T-Bone Walker does that too.
Got very big. When BB King got very big, he still wore his guitar properly with his arm through it. Whereas, well, not with his arm through it, with it over his head. But Freddie King didn't do that. He just had it, well, whatever, it doesn't matter, but it's just interesting,
Yeah, the guitar strap doesn't go behind his neck, right? It just goes over the one shoulder, right? Yeah. Yeah, I think T-Bone Walker does that too. Maybe it's a Texas thing, because T-Bone basically grew up in Texas as well, so...
Maybe.
I wonder if Johnny Winter and Blind Lemon. Actually, Blind Lemon, I think I remember seeing pictures of Blind Lemon. And his guitar strap was like that too, I think, just over his shoulder and not behind his neck.
Don't know, it's a weird thing to do.
Which is strange, but it would make sense if T-Bone plays, wears or carries his guitar like that, because T-Bone sort of did a little bit of an apprenticeship with Blind Lemon in Texas when T-Bone was really young. So, and he learned guitar from Blind Lemon, so maybe not only did he learn, the riffs and the chords and everything, but actually, just emulated the way Blind Lemon put the strap on the guitar and strapped it over himself,
I don't know the dare, because it slips off.
Yeah, you would think,
Yeah, I wouldn't do it. Well, there may be a reason for it. It might put see, very often you'll put the guitar where you need it to play. I know Angus Young has his really quite high above his hip, but he's doing that strutting around and he plays it over his right hip. So it helps him get a good control while he's playing. So he wedges it in with his forearm and he's doing his duck walk or doing whatever, bounce on one foot. and it's rock solid control. He's got, because I was watching, surprise, surprise, I was watching that today in River Plate gig they did in 2011, and yeah, that's a mighty guitar solo in Let There Be Rock. It's a great blues guitar solo. Some real moves, real Buddy Guy moves.
I'm just looking at pictures of Johnny Winter here online,
Yeah,
and in some pictures he's wearing the guitar strap like he's got it over his head. You know what I mean? Like he's put his head and his arm through it,
yeah, that's
and
right.
then
That's standard
and then
way to do it.
but then on other photos he just has it over his one shoulder, and he doesn't have his head. He doesn't have it. He didn't put his head through it. He just put his shoulder through it.
You do
So
that when you're walking on stage, perhaps. I've done that myself, but um, I don't know. You can do it sometimes for tuning up and then stick it on, or even when you're changing the guitar or changing, just get it on quick. Just get it on play, and off you go.
yeah, possibly. I don't know. It seems yeah.
Who knows? Who knows? I mean, I saw Stevie Ray Vaughan. Um, his guitarist reached round and changed the string while he's playing.
Yes. Yeah.
In that, I think it's Stevie Ray Vaughan
Yeah.
changed
I've
that
seen that.
string on the guitar.
Oh, it's incredible, right?
In the middle of a solo. Oh dear, it's fantastic. I think it is Stevie Ray Vaughan, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
It is, yeah. He was listening to a radio thing about him 10 years ago, and played all day for some of his tunes. They're trying to get it down, and he didn't do one solo, one riff that was identical all day.
He was a genius.
Absolute genius. I mean, really heavy strings too. He had 13s or 12s, really heavy. And
Yeah,
it
that's how
bend
he
a
was
bit.
able to get that really nice, sort of big, beefy
Yep.
sound out of his guitar.
He had Seymour Duncan pickups, which are very total Texas sound, and very thick strings. And he also tuned down as well to make them floppier so he could bend them. I mean, let's think about the bends Stevie Ray Vaughan. I mean, he bent them up to his chin. Just
Yeah. Yeah.
unbelievable levels of bending. And it's the sort of level of the guitar that I absolutely admire, but I wouldn't even start on that mountain. It's just, well, first of all, it's not Buddy Guy. And secondly, I don't think I'd have the sheer time to put in. And you're talking some of those riffs on Texas Flood are unbelievable. The speed of them,
Yeah. Well, these guys out of Texas were a completely different level of playing.
Yeah.
It's speed and technique, and that's a deadly combination. I mean,
and it's
again,
clean.
we traced
clean.
that all the way back to Blind Lemon, right? Blind Lemon was blindingly quick, but beautiful chord structures and intricate patterns and very high level of skilled playing. Where you'd swear he had three hands, not two. You know what I mean? It's just
I know exactly
a Blind Lemon song, and it sounds like he's got a second guitarist backing him up, but it's just Blind Lemon singing and playing his own guitar. That is it. And you can see how then it's worked through to T-Bone Walker, and it worked through to Freddie King to a certain extent, and definitely worked through with Johnny Winter and Stevie Ray Vaughan. I mean, Stevie Ray Vaughan is the pinnacle example of a Texas bluesman, in my opinion. I mean, Stevie Ray Vaughan is probably, for me, after Buddy Guy and maybe BB number 2, Stevie Ray would be a close number 3 to BB, maybe. BB, in my opinion, the only reason that I put BB above Stevie Ray Vaughan is not only because of his ability and his skill level, but just what BB did for the blues. I mean, he took the blues all over the world. He was known as the ambassador of the blues. I mean, BB played in countries where nobody else had ever played prior to him, right? So, I mean, he took the blues to China and Russia and South America and Japan. But in terms of actual skill level and playing, Stevie Ray Vaughan's pretty tough to match, in my opinion.
Yeah, I can't think of many would compete. Gary Moore, perhaps.
Yeah,
Gary
Gary
Moore.
Moore. Yeah.
Gary Moore. Wow, what a guitar player! In fact, have you seen the video with Gary Moore out BB King? He outdid BB King doing BB King,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
and BB King's face like, "Oh goodness me, I don't need to be here," which is great homage, you know.
Well, and a lot of these guys are, they'll be the first to admit, that yes, I was influenced by, this guy or that guy. And they tend to give props where, and credit where credit is due a lot of time, where, Buddy Guy talks about his influences all the time, BB King and Guitar Slim and John Lee Hooker to some extent, and T-Bone Walker. And, BB talks about T-Bone Walker and Charlie Christian. And I mean, all of these guys are very quick to give credit where credit is due. And they're also very willing to hand over the spotlight. If there's two of them on the stage at the same time, they don't get into these crazy solo battles and try to cut each other's heads. They share the spotlight with each other. A perfect example of that is you can find a video right here on YouTube of Jeff Healey and Stevie Ray Vaughan playing together. And they don't try to outdo each other. Each one gives the other a chance to go and show his stuff. And while one's playing, the other's just backing him up. And you can see them smiling and supporting one another and really having a good time together. And it's a musical partnership. And a lot of the fellas did that. So, BB King was very quick to step back and let somebody else, have a go at it. And, I think BB was very much of the idea that when somebody emulated his style of playing, it was the greatest form of flattery.
Oh yes, of course. I mean, I mean that's the thing that appeals to me with the blues. It brings people together, and it's a sharing thing, to my mind. At risk of sounding like a bit touchy feely, but it's true. You can back off and you go, you nod to somebody, you do all this. And then you go back into your little cage and sit there and let somebody else go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
And then he'll nod at you, and you're back in. And then you're back out. It's great. I love that. I love that.
Yeah, and because they'll just take turns doing great solos, and they'll sort of as a result, it forces the other guy, like they sort of bring each other to higher levels. You know what I mean? They bring out the best in each other, and not necessarily in a competitive way either. It's just sort of a supportive way.
Yeah, and it's fun. It's fun. It really is. And everybody brings their own thing. So, for example, Jeff Beck would bring effect pedals and bits of fuzz and insane levels of speed on the slide.
Yeah. And lots of whammy bar and that as well.
Yeah, Stevie Ray Vaughan would just take Jimi Hendrix to the next level. And I don't mean that with any disrespect to Stevie Ray Vaughan. It's just the sheer levels of speed and attack and accuracy. BB King would be the rounded tremolo and the king of the bend.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Buddy Guy would just be great on every front because I'm biased.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
And Gary Moore brought sustain. That blonde fella you were talking about, oh God help us, him with the hat, crying out loud.
Oh, Johnny Winter.
Yeah, Johnny Winter, lightning levels of speed, but great intonation. Even
what I just noticed about Johnny Winter, because I was watching a few live performances on YouTube of Johnny Winter from the 70s, where he's singing some of his classics like Be Careful with a Fool and things like that. And he just plugs his guitar straight into his amp. So any effect that he's creating with his guitar is just him and his guitar. He's not using any fuzz or distortion or whammy bars or any pedals or anything. It's just his guitar plugged straight into his amp.
Cool. I mean, they get in the way to those things. the one and only pedal I used was an MXR 90, and I'd raise the gain up. Just if we're talking tackle, just for a second, I'd play through a Les Paul standard. We've got two or three of those, and play that through a Rocker Verb 50, which is a 30-watt valve amp. It's play just the right amount, just a small amount of crush, and then my signal came through an MXR 90, which compresses the frequencies, and I just liked it. So if I hit it harder, I got a little bit of crush, so I didn't have to faff about with foot pedals. And just like you say, if you're going to make a noise, you've got to control it yourself and make it yourself, not fart ass about with chorus pedals and flanges and reverbs and God knows what.
Well, there's a place for all of that, of course, and some guys were fantastic at it. I mean, you know, Jimi Hendrix was amazing at using you know, feedback and distortion as notes or chords. And
that
of
now
course,
again,
you know.
but you've got to remember that's control. That's something you have to fight with to control. That's another level of difficulty. I'm talking about things like flanger, just give you a nice color.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean?
Yes.
I mean, Jimi Hendrix or Pete Townshend, for that matter, would crank their amps up and just use a volume knob on the guitar. Well, you've got a ton of power. You nudge that volume knob, you're going to blow your band off stage. So, sorry, I'm getting all a bit excitable just thinking about being on stage.
I like it.
But people like bands like the Police. Andy Summers just had quite a bit of chorus. So of course in the 70s, 80s, early 80s, I wanted a chorus pedal. But when I think it's a rite of passage, get rid of all that crap. That's why I'm playing this battered old acoustic at the minute. It's you've got to learn how. You basically got to be able to play. You know, and I'm not saying I'm making a good fist of it either, but I'm enjoying it, and that's the main thing. And I'm getting the sounds out of it. You know, like a pinched harmonic on an acoustic. Can't get it. Typical. Can you hear that? Used to sit there for hours trying to get a pinched harmonic.
Yeah.
But when you put it through an amp, of course, it sails out. So it's easy. It's actually easier, but it still needs control and practice. And if you get it out of an acoustic, of course, you've then got that control that you take to your instrument when you magnify the sound.
Yeah, exactly.
So I get a little bit being a bit of a purist when people use too much effect to get that thing, because it's pedals for everything, you know, pitch shifters and octavers and all sorts of rubbish. But to be honest, you get somebody like Stevie Ray Vaughan, he's got control. You have to control a wah wah.
Yeah,
you have to play along with an auto wah. Albert Lee, he's got a delay pedal that turns his guitar off. He makes a mistake, it dies. You know, he's also got a repeater, a fast echo plex. So instead of doing, you'd get. Do you see what I mean? And then when you do
that's why he does those boogie woogie phrasing so well.
Yeah, so he does it. He gets these insane levels of speed because he's got a repeater on his guitar. Now I've had a go with one of those. And you end up sounding like this. Instead of going, you get this. You get. Sorry.
I said you just cut out there for a second.
All right. Well, instead of getting, you get, if you don't time it right. So that's a hell of a skill. So people like Albert Lee, anybody using a wah pedal, anybody using these screaming loud amps, really fighting with them. So I've plenty of time for that. But when you slap a foot pedal on that you know you can't overdo it and it's got a limiter on, then I just think, well, you know what I mean? And that's not to decry the skill, the musicianship of the guitarist. But I think
no, absolutely not, because like I said, there's a time and place for
absolutely right.
these tools, and they can be used to great effect. I mean, I'm going to shout out probably one of the greatest, in my opinion, one of the greatest guitarists of any genre of all time, Jimmy Page. And he used all kinds of crazy effects and pedals and you know, to not only augment his music, but take it to new levels. But it didn't overshadow his playing. He was still obviously, I mean, we're talking Jimmy Page here. He was still obviously one of the most highly skilled guitarists that ever picked up an instrument. You know? Oh, we lost you again, Monk.
Yeah, but
even if you look back in the 50s, though, even if you look back in the 50s, like Ike Turner using a whammy bar. I mean, he used a whammy bar like almost every song. And
again, that's another difficult piece of equipment. Yeah. You use the old-fashioned 50 Strats that didn't have locking nuts. You take the whammy bar down to the boots, and you bring it back up. All the guitars out of tune.
Yeah.
On the early one, it's a disaster. So you had to lock them off tight. So anybody who plays a whammy bar and you can get these flip tuners that have you seen them, that you flick a thing and it changes the pitch of the string.
Yeah, as opposed to having to use a cap or anything.
Clip on them. I'm not quite sure what I'm talking about, because to be honest, I've never actually seen one close up. But they flick it, the guitar sort of changes tune. Gibson tried it. They had these auto, I don't know, it was just garbage. But anyway, but like I said, for anybody out there who's got a massive pedal board, all due respect to you for knowing how to understand it. I remember we were doing I went to buy, I'll tell you the story. I went to buy the guitar amp, my pride and joy. It's an orange Rocker Verb 50. It's a beautiful amp. It weighs, you got to take steroids to get it in the van. And it's that heavy. But at least it's not a Fender Twin. I had one of those as well. Anyway, so I went to get this, to buy an amp, and I went with the bass player. We've shopped together to get the same day. And I said to the guy, Gary, in the shop, I said, Gary, I want an amp. He said, I know exactly what you want. You don't do effects, do you? I said, God forbid, no. I said, turn it on, turn it up, and let's play. You know, can't be bothered with all that rubbish. He said, yeah, that one. I said, how do you work it? He said, that's standby, and that's on, and that knob's louder, and that knob's quieter. Done. And that's I said, that. I haven't even heard it. I haven't even put a Strat through it. Sorry, a Les Paul through it. And I plugged it in, turned it on to standby, cranked it up, played it about 3 chords. I said, right, that's mine. What are you having, Chris? And because we've been saving up for months. And Chris went over, picked up a Fender Precision, plugged it into a Jeff Berlin. We put the orange amp on the top of the Jeff Berlin bass amp. We cranked them up in the shop. We shouldn't have done really, but we did. We had them at gig level, and it was bloody loud, I can tell you. And most of upstairs came down to watch us going through My Generation. We did that and Spank the Living Day, and it sounded great. Well, I'm not spending thick end of £1,000 trying to pretend I've listened to the amp. I want to know if it's loud, and I want to know if it sounds as good as I want it, and I wanted to know if it mixes. Now, it was a bit naughty, but we bought them, so they didn't do too badly out of the deal, you know. But this hang on a minute. Oh, it's way out of tune then. Hang on.
It's like the amp that I have. I mean, it's only got a few buttons on it. It's got presence, it's got volume, and then it's got 3 knobs for the equalizer. No, four knobs, sorry, for the equalizer. And an on and off switch, and that's it.
Seriously, mine has got like nothing going on. It's treble and middle. It's got gain and volume, and I can't even think of it. It's got reverb. or not. It's got. Oh, I think it's got clean and overdrive. I don't even. Hang on. I should check it out. I'll do a video of it at some point. But it's very basic, and boy, is it loud. But so we did this with. And Chris did the bass solo for it, you know, doom diddly doom diddly doom doom doom, and play it. Obviously, it's cracking bass plays, Chris, and we were right one please. We just took them out. We were only in the shop about half an hour. So, but you know, and you know, don't you? With this, but anyway, harping back to what you were saying, we always played to really basic equipment because you've got to be a musician then. Now, if you add on to that, then put on your pedal board. Like, for example, James round here, he stood in for Chris for a year or two while Chris had youngsters, and his pedal board was immense, and we always used to front him up as his guitar soloist at the end because that's what he was, a guitar player. But one night we rocked up to the gig, and he's not got his pedal.
Monk, you've cut in and out, so we just missed everything you just said.
Oh, you're joking.
Sorry, you just cut out. So I think, as far as me, I heard when you just started to talk about James, and then it went.
Oh, right. Well, James is a cracking guitar player, session guitarist, very great standard. I mean, a lovely lad, but an outstanding guitar player. I mean, levels of guitar I could never attain. Nor would I want to, frankly, and that's not sour grapes. He's just immense guitar player. He's into Buckethead and people like that, Steve Vai, and real elevated levels. And he doesn't like 12 bar, so that's where computer it's about today. He doesn't like 12 bar blues, so we fell out over that.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. He doesn't like 12 bar blues. All right, you're playing bass. Right, bugger off, you know. I can't believe it. Somebody doesn't like the blues, and that's fair enough. You know, he was only a young lad. He was 17 he was.
Sure. Anyway, I mean, you know, each to his own, and your tastes change and develop as you get older too. I mean, I can remember, remember when I was a teenager, pretty much all I liked was, you know, rock and roll and punk, and a little bit of what was the new burgeoning music at the time, rap or hip hop. I liked some of that because I always found it fast, and we're talking like early 80s here, 82, 84, because I always found it fascinating how they were able to sample and, you know, do the sampling and the mixing and do the scratching on the records and then talk or rap over it. I always found that to be very technically fascinating to me, you know, how they could create a song out of just little bits and pieces of other songs. But I never was really into blues or even jazz until I got a bit older. I didn't really get into blues until I was in my mid to late teens. And I discovered that through, you know, sort of the rock and roll guys, the Led Zeppelins and that sort of thing, right?
Right, way back.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. That's what I was saying happened to another James who rang me the other day. I think it was Monday or earlier on this week. And he was asking me about how would you make the blues pump. That's why I put that video out, incidentally.
Yeah.
And name checking. So, yeah, just to clear things up, James 1 is a session musician. He's down in London now, working for a recording studio. And James 2, he's up here, and he's quite an accomplished musician. And but he cut his teeth on rock, and he's started to get interested in getting a grounding as to where those riffs have come from, because he can play them, but I get the impression, and correct me if you're listening, James, correct me if I'm wrong, but I just wonder if you'd done much improvising in the blues genre, because he's asking me about how to make this more interesting, which is why I did that video where you can start to add in. You don't want to lose the rhythm. You got to keep pumping, but you get fed up with. And so I'm messing around.
Yeah.
Picking right picks it up. But I'll tell you, if I don't start doing some jamming soon, I'll explode. Because I need straightening out. Seriously, it makes a heck of a difference playing with another person.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, I find I get like that sometimes
And
too,
along
though.
with
You
Chris
know,
and
like I find that sometimes I get stuck in playing the same thing on the harp when I'm doing a turnaround. You know, I always end up kind of doing like a Howlin' Wolf or even Sonny Boy Williamson sort of style of turnaround. And it almost seems like no matter what song I'm playing along to, because I tend to just put a record on and play along to it. And I try to put on a record that doesn't have any harmonica in it so that I can just create my own harmonica phrasings within the song.
I'm with you.
But I always find that the turnaround that I do is always kind of the same thing. It's always like a kind of a, you know what I mean? And then I go off into the next versing and the next phrasing. And
I know what you mean.
that's
A
very rooted
cliche.
in
So
my Howlin' Wolf influence because I love Howlin' Wolf. And that's kind of what he does pretty much no matter what song he's playing and no matter what tempo it is, no matter what tone or key it's in, the turnaround is always the same. And I find myself getting kind of bogged down in that trap of constantly playing the same turnaround all the time. So I'm trying to force myself to do different things, either do like Junior Wells does, where he plays that same turnaround, but he actually omits or edits out some notes, or try to do like Sonny Boy does, where he adds in extra notes, kind of like how Buddy Guy on guitar will add in extra notes, you know? So at least try to change it up and change the flavor of it a little bit, you know?
Well, yeah, Buddy Guy likes his decay. He likes to let it go. He likes to kill the note as well.
Yeah.
And B.B. King does that too. He does a sort of an echo type note. Hang on, dear. Oh, taking it right out of tune. These strings are ancient. I've had them on a year. Oh, that's all something we were going to talk about as well, this guitar.
Oh, yes, your guitar.
Yeah, it's ancient. It's really, turns out, folks, to be quite rare. It's a Terada FW504 with no scratch plate. I looked it up the other day. It wasn't a majorly expensive unit, but it turns out to be based on a Gibson Dove, I think it was called. And it's got a very narrow neck. And it plays beautifully. It's very light, a laminated front. I think I paid 42 quid for it. That number seems to jump up. And it plays really, it solos really well. Now I've got used to the narrow neck again, because a Gibson, a Les Paul is really quite a broad neck.
Yeah.
With big, deep frets. And I've been playing the classical a lot, which is very broad neck. So going to this guitar was like going back from the Gibson, sort of going onto a 50s Telecaster, 60s
well, yeah,
Telecaster.
you were saying that the body of the guitar is like a Gibson, but the neck is like a Fender almost.
Yeah, it's definitely got a Telecaster feel to it.
And for anybody who's wondering what guitar Monk is talking about, it's actually the photo for his avatar that you will see on the screen when Monk is speaking. That's his guitar. Yeah, that's your Lucille, right?
Sorry,
that's your Lucille.
Yeah, my version of Lucy. If I lost everything I owned and I had to have just one thing beyond clothes and food and shelter, it would be this guitar. I have written 150 songs on this. None of them any good. About 3 of them were okay, but still.
You said you got that guitar in. You said you got it in. You got it in 1980. You said, right? Something like that.
80, what? Yeah, I think I'm 16. Older a bit. Hang on, a bit 6, definitely 15 or 16. Let me work it out. I'm just trying to have a think. Yeah, about 80, 81, I think.
Yeah, so it served you well over, well over 30 years already.
Yeah, 30 odd years, God help us. 36 years I've had this, 37. Wow. And I've never had this set up at all. Oiled the neck a few times. There's a split here and there. The fret wear on it is just unbelievable. You could tell where I did all my earlier playing, and you could tell I played in key of A a lot.
Yeah.
But
Well,
like,
I still have my first harmonica that my granddaddy gave me when I was, I think, 6 or 7 years old. So that's 1976, 1977. It doesn't play anymore because it's so old now that a lot of the reeds inside are all seized up or have snapped off. So I think out of the 12 holes in it, I think maybe two or three of them work. Or sorry, the 10 holes in
that's
it.
a shame.
But I still have it because it was my first harmonica that my grandfather gave, and it wasn't even new when he gave it to me. It's not like he went to a shop and bought a new harmonica. It was one that belonged to him already, so Lord knows how long he had it before he gave it to me. So I don't even know. It could have been a harmonica. It could be a harmonica from the early 60s for all I know.
Cool.
I haven't even looked it up for some reason. But it's an old Hohner harmonica, an old
All
Hohner
right.
chromatic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That German.
Yeah, Honers, in my opinion, are some of the best harmonicas out there. And yeah,
They
they're
don't do
based out of
bad
Germany.
guitars, either.
Sorry?
Don't do bad guitars, Honer.
Do they make
Underrated.
guitars? Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know
Underrated.
that.
Yeah, Honer guitar. Hohner.
Yeah.
They do fairly pretty good guitars. I mean, like anything else, there's Fender and Gibson, and that's what you want because you know the names. But there are some corking. I mean, Jeff Berlin, great guitars. Rickenbackers, well, all right. They
Actually, I
make.
have to say that
Don't want to be
another
critical.
another really good brand of harmonica that I was turned on to from a friend of mine down in the U.S. He lives down in Arizona, and he's a professional bluesman. And he's played with Junior Wells, and he's played with Willie Dixon and Guitar Shorty,
Mm-hmm.
and he's friends with Lee Oscar, who's a fantastic blues harmonica player in his own right. And Lee Oscar has played with guys like Muddy Waters and hell, you name it, Albert Collins and Luther Allison. But I picked up recently on the recommendation of my friend in Arizona a Lee Oscar signature harmonica, and they sound very good as well. So
Cool.
generally, when I'm just noodling around and practicing, I use my Lee Oscar. But when I'm jamming or playing in an open mic night or sitting in with maybe some of the local bands that come through, then I'll play with my Hohner because I just find that it has for me, just a slightly richer, warmer, sort of more of a well-rounded sound to it.
Right, I'm with you.
Almost how you would compare vinyl records have a warmer sound than, let's say, a CD. But they both sound great in their own ways, but the vinyl just sounds warmer than the CD. Kind of the same thing for me with Honers. They just sound warmer and just sort of like I said, more of a well-rounded sound to it. But yeah,
Yeah, I
these
get
Lee
that.
Oscars are very good harmonicas, and
I
they're
get that.
roughly the same price as a Hohner. So you can pick up an excellent harmonica for between $39 and $49 Canadian, and
Wow.
that's directly from Hohner from their website. So,
Gosh.
and I should
I
shout
wish
out
they
my
could.
friend who's down in Arizona. His name is Walking Cane Mark. Walking Cane Mark. He was given that name by Willie Dixon himself, actually, because Walking Cane Mark was in a bad car accident and screwed up his back really, really badly when he was in his 20s, and henceforward has to walk with a cane. So there you go, Walking Cane Mark.
All right,
So
cool.
Walking Cane, if you're listening, howdy, bro. Good to see you.
And
And
we need to interview you.
what's that?
We need to interview.
Yeah, I should try to get a hold of him. Actually, I do have his number. I actually
All
have
right,
Lee
well,
Oscar's number too, but I'm not going to call Lee Oscar and bother him.
why
But
not? I'll get him on sometime.
maybe down the road, yeah.
Never played Sweet Home Alabama on this guitar. still haven't.
Oh, that sounded pretty good, actually.
I don't know about. Do you know that? Do you know this? I have seen so many guitarists do that so much better. Unbelievable levels of skill, particularly the solo. But of course, that's not why we do this channel. We do this because we love the blues, particularly Buddy Guy. So there you go.
Absolutely, yeah.
Buddy, if you're listening to this, yeah, of course we don't want to interview you.
No, that
Of
wouldn't be
course
a
we don't.
lifelong dream. That wouldn't be a lifelong dream of mine at all, you know?
No, no, absolutely not. Do not
Uh,
want to talk to the guy. Do not want to talk about technique and guitar and instruments and life and everything else.
I've only been writing and researching about the blues for over 25 years. And so, yeah, needless to say, if I could bend Buddy Guy's ear for even 10 minutes and ask him a few questions, that would be a dream come true.
Yeah,
It'd
be cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And the crazy thing is I've met him a few times, but at that point I wasn't I wasn't really doing any of the journalism and research and writing articles about the blues yet, and hadn't had anything published at that point yet. So I was still just kind of listening and learning at that point. And in hindsight, it's too bad, you know.
How do you take you've had a book published, Whiskey?
No, I've had some articles published, but I've never I've never compiled everything into a book. I probably should at some point.
Yeah, well, interesting that, because you are a hell of an authority on all that stuff. At risk of being a fanboy.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate that.
Well, it's true. Right? You'll go, what guitar did such and such play on such and such a record? Actually, it wasn't a guitar. It was a violin, blah, blah. You know what I mean? And all this stuff, and you think, oh, my God, is there anything he doesn't know? Which is why I say to you, I think, oh, God, I'm such a fraud. I can play a few moves here and there. And you go, yeah, that's pretty good. And it sounds like such and such. And I'll think, yeah, well, I must have listened to it because I'm doing it. It's weird. It's really, really weird.
Well, see, the thing is that your musical technical ability is much better than mine. You're a much better musician than I am. And you know all of the, you know, makes and models of different guitars and that sort of thing. I really don't know too much about that side of things. You know, my expertise is more how did this music spring up and why? And, you know, how did some of these blues themes become sort of blues standards where, you know, they take the basic melody and change, you know, just add different words, or take the basic theme of like Poor Boy Long Way From Home and change it around to make it
develop. Dropped out a minute a bit there. It is incredible, and it's still going. I love it, and it's great to report that you know that young guy who's a blues that you were telling me about, and of course James too. He's into it, and I'm hoping you're listening in, James. We need to interview you. You did say yes, so I'll have him on here at some point. And there's several blues players around here earmarked. One of them's a harp player. Two of them are harp players, and a sprinkling guitarists. We could need to think about bass players as well. We need to have a bit of talk about bass players because they seem to be unsung heroes.
Yes, and
think about many bass players and the blues.
Well, yeah, you and I often get caught in a trap of talking about singers and guitarists and harp players, obviously, because that's something that we can kind of relate to on a more personal level. But you're absolutely right. The rhythm sections of bass players and drummers in the blues, there's some completely unmatched guys that provided the backbeat for, you know, all of these guitar slingers and these blues gods, you know, these guys like Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf and Buddy Guy. But, you know, playing behind them, guys like Fred Bello and, you know, the drummers like Fred Bello and Sam. See, now I'm just dropping the ball here with my knowledge.
No, it's not that. It is what it is, and these guys are unsung heroes. And without it, there's no band. I mean, you look at these bands like to the Oscar Peterson trio. Now, obviously, that was more of an idea trio than a fixed band, but you know, those guys are top musicians. I know. fellow called, I don't know if you've heard of him, Howard McCrary, pianist, singer.
Mm-hmm.
Great jazzer, good blues, solid blues voice. Really, really good. I saw him in Burnley. Crying out loud. It'll be 1998 and 9. No. Yeah, 1998 and 99. And we met him in the green room. And after the gig, because we were being all fanboy about it. And so we charged our way in. And the gig had just been amazing. It was a 2-hour just extravaganza of top riffs and blues and standards and all sorts of stuff. And absolutely brilliant. No, not one piece of music on stage. Just 3 fellas, piano, bass, and drums, a la Oscar Peterson, you see.
Yes.
And when we got backstage, because we were pitching a song to him, because the guy I was with had holidayed with Howard and worked on a song project in Fiji. A long story. I'll tell you about that privately later. It's not to do with blues. A gospel song. Anyway, so I had this song to pitch, and which is why we were there to meet Howard McCrary. And it transpired that the bass player and the drummer met Howard on stage. Now, think of what I'm saying there. This wasn't a band. It was a Scotch team. Now, if you know anything about being in a band, which of course you do, the secret to a good band is not necessarily the technical ability. It's the tightness and coordination of the band.
Yeah.
Well, these 3 guys you couldn't get a razor blade in between them on the tempo and the timing and the rhythm and the syncopate. Oh, it was just dead on. I mean, they didn't even discuss keys. Howard just called the songs and they just played. It was like any band I've ever been in. You go, what key's this in? All right, E flat, right, off we go. E flat, oh my God, what's that? And you're in. At least you got a chance with the key. You know, A flat blues, okay, E minor, okay, blah, 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 and so on. You got an idea of the key, so you've at least a scale you can play to. But not these fellas. No talking, no looking. Howard said, okay, I'll give you the intro. 1, 2, bang, and off they went. You'd think it was part of the act. And they were as much fans of him as I was by the end. And they were doing the gig. It was incredible. And what a great night. Absolutely brilliant night. These lads who really play, I mean, they're incredible. And they were only young guys. They're all in their 20s, maybe early 30s, what the drummer. But tremendous talent. Tremendous.
Well, Trav was in the chat earlier, and he mentioned Willie Dixon. So, of course, we have to shout out Willie Dixon as being probably one of the most influential blues bass players of all time, because he wasn't just a bass player. I mean, Willie Dixon was a recording artist in his own right, and he wrote a lot of songs and recorded them himself, and then he wrote a lot of songs that became blues hits for other artists. He wrote songs for Muddy and Howlin' Wolf and Buddy Guy and Chuck Berry and Slim Harpo, like you name it. And
the only bass players I can really think of in that genre-ish from the Motown are Bob Babbitt. Is it Bob Bobbitt? Bob Bobbitt? Bob Bobbitt. Bob Babbitt.
Bob Babbitt, yeah.
Bob Babbitt, and who followed on from James Jamerson. And James Jamerson, what a double bass player. He moved to Precision after. Fantastic. He put a sponge under the bridge pickup to dampen the guitar, the bass guitar, to make it sound like a double bass. So you'd have hang on a minute. Yeah. Stuff like that. He did a lot of that chromatic run.
You know who else was another great bass player, but he played the electric bass as opposed to the double upright bass was Dave Myers. Dave Myers' name is synonymous with blues bass players. He's played with everybody from Robert Lockwood Jr., Johnny Shines, Little Walter, Junior Wells, Otis Rush, and also we have to mention Donald Duck Dunn.
Oh yeah,
He was an amazing bass player. Duck Dunn,
that's his riff, isn't it?
yeah, he was well, you know, Booker T and the MGs. That was Donald Duck Dunn too.
Ba, 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 ba. He's one with the pipe in the Blues Brothers, isn't he, with the curly hair?
Yes, that's him. Yep.
Whispering Bob Ross.
Yeah, yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. I remember his line from the Blues Brothers. Not that I've seen it, or I've only seen it once. Yeah, that's why I can remember nearly every line in it. No, exactly. If the shit fits, word. Remember that line?
Yeah, of course. Classic.
The gig. Mr. Wonderful says, "Right, gentlemen, I'm leaving." And then what's his name? Cab Calloway comes on and says, "Right, do you know Minnie the Moocher? I used to know a hooker called Minnie what was it? Minnie Minola or something."
Yeah, something. Yeah.
He said, "Right, hit it." Da, 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 and the band cracks up. Brilliant. Yeah, yeah. Everybody needs somebody. Everybody needs somebody to love. Somebody to love. Sometimes I feel inside. When my baby mistreats me, it really, really hurts my pride, my bone. Ba 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 da da. No. Da 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 da. That's it. That's it. Something like that.
Yeah.
I've seen that film so many times. So many.
Sam Lay, that's his name. Damn it, it just jumped into my head. Sam Lay.
There you
How
go.
could I forget? One of the best blues drummers of all time, Sam Lay.
Yeah.
Incredible. And actually he had his own band for a while too, the Sam Lay Blues Band, where he would play drums and do lead vocals at the same time, which is no easy feat. And of course, Fred Bello was probably the best blues drummer of all time. I think he backed up Muddy and Howlin' Wolf and Buddy Guy and Junior Wells. I mean, you name it. Otis Rush, he backed up everybody. Odie Payne is another one too. And of course, Willie Big Eyes Smith. But Willie Big Eyes Smith is a bit of an anomaly because he played, he would just sing and let somebody else play drums, but he would also play drums and he also played harmonica. So Willie Big Eyes Smith, one of those guys that you just give him any instrument and he'll just play it, I think.
Yeah, cool. I remember there's a famous quote from Paul McCartney. He was being interviewed apparently, and apparently the interviewer said, "Ringo Starr, he's not the best. He's not the best drummer in the world, is he?" And Paul McCartney said, "He's not the best drummer in the Beatles."
Yeah, that's right. Ringo wasn't bad, but he wasn't the best, that's for sure, especially if you consider at that time period. I mean, who were the other two bands that were competing for market share with the Beatles? It was the Rolling Stones and Led Zeppelin. And the Rolling Stones drummer, Charlie Watts, is much better than Ringo could ever dream of being. And of course, John Bonham, probably one of the best drummers that ever lived, the drummer for Led Zeppelin.
Yeah,
it's a fantastic R&B and soul drummer as well as a hard rock drummer. I mean, all of his drumming is based on a lot of tom work from the jazz drummers like Buddy Rich and those guys, right? So yeah, Ringo, not the best.
Buddy
What's
Rich
that?
was very much gigging still.
Yeah,
Was Gene Krupa still about then as well?
I don't think Gene Krupa is still around. No, I think
No, he's not
he's.
around now, but then, I mean.
Oh yeah, Gene Krupa was around. He started in the 50s, I think. Gene Krupa.
Gene Krupa was Glenn Miller's drummer.
Maybe even in the 40s, I think he probably started. I'm going to have to Google it here. I think Gene Krupa started in the 40s.
I thought Gene Krupa played drums for Glenn Miller.
Possibly.
Don't ask me. See what I mean? We're pretty remiss not knowing about drummers.
Yeah, he did. No, you're right. Yeah, he played with Benny Goodman.
Oh, Benny Goodman, was it?
Yeah.
One of the things we'll have to look at is songs with classic blues motifs in them, like well, just about anything, really. You know, like the one I played you last night. What do you call it? A Brand New Cadillac. Do you know it? You know the one. And then it went.
Oh yeah,
baby,
yeah.
Baby, roll my baby, my baby. Baby rolled up in my baby rolled up in the brand new Cadillac. Baby rolled up in a brand new Cadillac. Boss to your daddy, she ain't ever coming back. Baby, baby, where'd you get that? And so on and so on and so on. The Clash did that. Did I mention the Clash?
Yeah, that was I remember that. I remember that hearing that song, and it was the Clash doing it. Now I don't know if it's a cover.
Really?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I remember that it was the Clash. At least if in my fuzzy 1980s punk rock memory.
I can't think which album it's on.
But it's funny, you know, we often talk about how you know,
about the punks.
We often talk about how blues and rock and roll are like, you know, brothers or first cousins or second cousins, or, you know, even, you know, Muddy Waters is quoted as saying the blues had a baby and they named it rock and roll and stuff like that. But we also forget that while rock and roll came out of, you know, hillbilly music, which was basically, you know, white guys playing the blues, punk rock kind of used both. They used a lot of that hillbilly, or for lack of a better term, sort of country or rockabilly sound, but they also used a lot of the blues phrasings and lots of bending from the blues that you don't hear very much or as much in rockabilly. You don't hear as much bending in rockabilly as you do in blues, but with really, you know, the bands that really combined the two effectively, like bands like the Clash, for example, where they took a lot of that early rockabilly stuff and they added a lot of the blues phrasings to it, and they did that probably better than most, I think.
That's right. Well, interestingly, I'll have to guide you to a band that you may not have heard of. Well, knowing actually, that's pretty ridiculous. It's more likely I'd never heard of them. It's called the 101ers. Have you heard of the 101ers?
101ers? No,
yeah,
actually.
101ers.
No, I haven't.
That was Joe Strummer's early band, and they were just about to break big. And then one night, Joe Strummer went to see the Sex Pistols at a gig, and he went back and we went home, and apparently thought, well, we're over. That's it, we're done. And a few days later, he joined the Clash.
Oh, wow.
Because the Clash went to watch him at a 101ers gig. I mean, the 101ers, if you just Let's Get a Little Bit of Rockin' was their first and only single, I think. It was rhythm and blues on speed and steroids at the same time, and Joe Strummer played the living day. So obviously he's steeped in a lot of the rock and roll and Woody Guthrie stuff, particularly. He did also.
I think that's the big difference between a lot of the British musicians that adopted the blues and brought it back to the U.S. in the 50s and 60s. That's a big difference between them and a lot of the uh, white American bluesmen that adopted the blues in the 50s and 60s. The British sort of, a lot of you guys over there combined folk music and sort of that college coffee house type of folksy type of music, and combined it with the straightforward Chicago blues or Delta blues, and kind of put them together and created a sort of uniquely different and new sound that was known as really as British blues. And a good example of that would again be Led Zeppelin, where people often think of them as being a hard rock band or one of the founding fathers of heavy metal, or what would become known as heavy metal. And I'll agree with that, but Led Zeppelin also had a lot of songs where they're playing mandolin or they're playing acoustic songs, and they're very, very folky sounding songs. They're based very much in the folk music genre, and not, depending on the song, of course, and not so much into the blues aspect of it. Much like the Rolling Stones too, where a lot of people, sort of think as the Rolling Stones as a rock and roll band, and they are sort of touted as being the world's greatest rock and roll band, because they're still going strong after 60 years now or something like that. But really, they're a rhythm and blues band. The Rolling Stones are a British R&B band. They took elements of blues and early rockabilly and early rock and roll, and put all that together and basically created a British sounding rhythm and blues.
Yeah,
And I'm talking like 1940s style rhythm and blues here, not what we call R&B today, like Beyonce and all that. I'm talking about rhythm and blues that eventually became known as rock and roll. That sound.
That is not R&B. That's just garbage.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
hijack, synthetic garbage.
The term
Sorry.
R&B has been applied to today, that R&B stuff, but that's not the same as the R&B or rhythm and blues from the 40s and 50s. Basically, the rhythm and blues of the 40s and 50s eventually just evolved into what we now call rock and roll. Yeah. I mean, the stuff that Ike Turner was doing and Jackie Brenson was doing, and Louis Jordan, and all those guys that, especially the blues shouters too, like, Big Joe Turner and those guys. I mean, eventually became rock and roll.
I mean, I don't misunderstand, folks out there in internet land. These R&B so-called performers are tremendously talented, but to call it rhythm and blues is just ridiculous.
Yeah, it doesn't really
call it rhythm music, but they really need their own name. I mean, gospel, soul, modern pop soul would be closer to the mark, surely, or something like that, but not R&B. I mean, you take Beyonce, you get her singing a normal song. Yeah, she can knock out a blues tune. So
hell yeah.
I mean, these girls are tremendous singers, absolutely outstanding. I don't know. In fact, there's only what was that Night of the Divas we were talking about a few weeks ago? Do you remember?
Yes.
Who came? Mary J. Blige.
Yeah, Mary J. Blige.
Absolutely brilliant. She came on and sang, and I'm thinking, why didn't you sing that then? Because it's so much better. Who's it can knock out the blues? Well, but Lady Gaga. I don't know if she's an R&B singer or not, but Beyonce can sing like hell. So could who died, Bobby Brown's girlfriend.
Whitney Houston, yeah.
Whitney Houston, what a singer. And she didn't do too much treble either. A lot of them now sound like the yodeling, and I just think that's garbage. It's ridiculous, some of it. And I know they have to do it for the kids, but some of them are just great singers, really good. Oh, like Scherzinger.
Let me tell you how good Beyonce is as a singer, okay? She does her, top 40 pop, soul, R&B stuff that she does all the time now, which is good. And I will definitely agree with you that she's got probably a 1 in a million voice, and she's amazing. But she's able to take that style that you say that they kind of have to do it for the kids now, and she's able to tone that down. And a good example of that is in that movie Cadillac Records, which is loosely based on the history of Chess Records. In that movie, she plays the part of what's her name there? Uh, Crap.
Donna Summer, not Donna Summer. I know what you
No,
mean.
shit, I'm trying
But
to blank.
out of the three girl group,
No, she Etta James. She plays the
oh
part
right,
of
oh
Etta
God, I was
James,
thinking of
and
somebody.
she's able to completely switch her style of singing from her own distinct Beyonce sound to the Etta, where she sang more bluesy like Etta James. She bent the notes when she sang. Um, and she did quite a good job of not only, I would say, just doing a cheap impression of Etta James, because it still sounded like Beyonce, but she did a great job of really sort of conjuring up the feel and the soulfulness of Etta James.
That just shows you how talented they are. But it just seems a shame they have to go through this synthetic umchanga. But saying that, of course, you can't be like that because it's the next generation on. We've just like gone back to three generations back. So
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
not fair. That's not fair. I guess
I
I'm
mean,
being.
I mean, the music
I
is
don't mind.
constantly evolving, and I mean, a lot of
Yeah,
what we call blues now, I personally wouldn't call blues, like Papa Chubby. I can't stand that guy. Papa Chubby to me is not blues. He's barely blues rock, you know. He's one of these guys. You and I always joke all the time that they just get on stage and it's just self masturbation with their guitar, and they just it's all sizzle and no substance. You
no
know.
sizzle and no steak.
Yeah,
I'm with you.
very much like Joe Bonamassa too. Not taking anything away from his technical ability or his talent. I mean, I could never, in a million years, play a guitar the way Joe Bonamassa plays it. But to me, there's not much soul there. It's just all technique and speed, and it's blindingly technical and fantastic. But it's missing that certain element that for some reason
Suffering, I
some
think, at
well,
risk of
so,
sounding.
yeah, maybe. You know, as some artists are able to capture that and some aren't, you know. And it's not even necessarily a racial thing either. Uh, so I think, yeah, it is
Well,
suffering, but not
Eric
necessarily.
Clapton, yeah,
Yeah, you have to sort of
Eric
you
Clapton
speak to
nailed
your
it.
own experiences, right? Yeah. Well, you know, of course, Stevie Ray Vaughan nailed it, and Johnny Winter
Jeff
nailed it.
Beck nailed
Mind
it.
you, Johnny Winter had a lot of suffering. I mean, he wasn't
The drugs
accepted
and
by Johnny Winter wasn't accepted by white kids or black kids because he was albino. So he was marginalized by all the other racial groups because he didn't fit in with anybody. He didn't fit in with white kids because they all thought he was a freak, and he didn't fit in with the black kids because they thought he was a freak, and he didn't fit in with the Mexican kids in Texas because they thought he was a freak. So no wonder he just stayed in his bedroom and learned to play guitar for, you know, the first half of his life. By the time he was 15, 16 years old, he was already in a couple of bands and a fantastic guitar player. So yeah, I think suffering and uh, the passion, the feeling for it, the exposure to it, there's a lot of factors that really, at least for me and my sort of snobby attitude about the blues, there's a lot of factors that go into creating what I would call an authentic blues sound or a feel,
mm.
you know.
Yeah, and I know thinking about things we discussed on other topics, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we've had our fair share of background problems, shall we say?
Yeah, and that's something that you have to be able to call upon and sort of conjure up within yourself in order to write songs and, you know, fill it
Yeah.
with emotion and make it something that's rooted in reality. And
Mm.
that's one of the things that for me personally why I love the blues so much in terms of the artists and the songs and the lyrics and the storytelling aspect of it is because it's one of the first musical genres out there in you know, the turn of the last century, you know, right around the late 1890s, early 1900s, where singers started personalizing the songs. They started singing about themselves and their own experiences instead of just singing about some fictitious character they made up or some mythical person or event that took place in the past. They started singing about real events, the floods in Texas and Mississippi and Louisiana, or building the levees, or cotton crops being decimated by boll weevils. And it wasn't just something that was sort of you were sort of removed from because you couldn't relate to it. Now all of a sudden it was topical stuff that anybody who was listening to it could sort of put themselves in the musician's shoes to a certain extent, and they could sort of relate to the subject matter.
Yeah, like Cognac.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cognac, track 3.
Track 3 on Buddy Guy's new album, The Blues is Alive and Well.
A great album. Everybody out there, go and buy it immediately without even thinking. Just buy it. It's great. We've played the groove. Well, you sound like you've played the groove off it. I don't think there's any plastic left on this disc, but it's absolutely brilliant, folks.
It's a great album. There's really not any song in there that I would call
not one weak track. Not one weak track.
There's some tracks that are much stronger than others, but there isn't a filler or a garbage track in there just to throw in.
Zero garbage.
And again, just a shout out that, Buddy's got some heavy hitters on this album. He's got James Bay, he's got Jeff Beck, he's got Keith Richards, he's got Mick Jagger singing and playing harp. And Mick Jagger's a hell of a great harp player. You listen to any Rolling Stones song after about, basically after Brian Jones passed, and all the harmonica you're hearing is Mick Jagger in the Rolling Stones songs. He's quite accomplished. And
the one I'm working through at the minute is End of the Line, track 14.
Yeah, that's a great track.
It is. It's a good, and it's just basic blues done beautifully. So it's The Blues is Alive and Well, which reminds me of the Garbage Man Blues a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
The one where she's closing the door. No, the guy's closed it. It's Guilty as Charged. No, it's not. It's Blues is Alive and Well.
Yeah.
Where he comes back and he can hear the back door closing.
Yeah, when I walk in the front door, I swear I hear my back door slam. Yeah.
Yeah. And You Did the Crime. That's a classic lament as well.
Well, he does have a couple of either classic themes or actual classic songs on this album too, like Nine Below Zero.
And
Nine Below Zero is a classic that goes back to the 40s, and Sonny Boy #2, Alec Rice Miller, the one that's my avatar on this channel, and it's our channel's photo avatar here, the harmonica player. He sort of...
Who's that one?
That's Sonny Boy Williamson. He redid Nine Below Zero, and that became a standard that he often performed live, and it was one of his most requested songs. And he has it on a number of his own albums, Sonny Boy, where he's re-recorded different versions of it. And other guys have done versions of Nine Below Zero, and they're very good. So yeah, that's a great classic one for sure.
Well, there was a band over here called Nine Below Zero, you know.
Sorry?
We had a band over here in the 80s called Nine Below Zero.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. And after that, they became the Truth.
Oh, okay.
Nine Below, but they got back together now. They're actually, well, they were a couple of years ago, look a lot older. Nine Below Zero. Yeah, very good, Nine Below Zero. They, standard blues, harmonica. What you're looking at, it's second tier blues, you know. But they were pretty good.
It's funny, a lot of bands will adopt blues lyrics as their band name, like the Rolling Stones, from Muddy Waters' song Rolling Stone. But, bands like Nine Below Zero, or bands like the Hoochie Coochie Men,
Oh, Bo Diddley.
Yeah, well, Bo Diddley did a form of Hoochie Coochie, and Muddy Waters, of course, did Hoochie Coochie Man. The original Hoochie Coochie Man was written by Willie Dixon for Muddy.
We had a band around here years ago. Oh, this is 1984. called the Red Box Blues Band. And a friend of mine, Boogie Bill, he used to play their gigs, used to bootleg their gigs, and they did a great version of Hoochie Coochie Man.
Great. Yeah, that's a classic. That's a classic.
He used to go, I'm your Hoochie Coochie Man. Woohoo, yeah. Everybody knew it. And it was all over the scale with his voice. Brilliant. Really good. I wonder if I can.
I like the, I think it's on the Muddy Waters DVD, or it's Muddy Waters at the Checkerboard Lounge, and the Rolling Stones join him on stage. And Mick and Muddy do, I think, a version of Hoochie Coochie Man together, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's where they wander in, isn't it? And sit on the table at right angles to the shape.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Never seen it.
It's actually on YouTube here, and it's very good.
Yeah, that's where I saw it. I have seen it. You know, when I was a kid, I always wanted to be able to play that, and now it's. Wilco Johnson style, you know. It's an interesting story. I won't tell it again because I told you last night. First, that's a whole other live stream. I think the story of Wilco Johnson, amazing man, with his illness and stuff, you know.
Yeah, that was a great story, actually. Yeah, you should save that for the next one. That was a great story. Just noticing Trav in the stream is talking about the Rolling Stones too, and he mentions the classic Little Red Rooster that the Rolling Stones did. That was their first hit. Little Red Rooster was the Rolling Stones. That was their first single. And the record company said, "Are you crazy? You can't release Little Red Rooster as your first single." And they said, "Well, bugger you guys, we're doing it anyways." And they did. And I think it reached number 2 or maybe even number 1 in the British R&B charts. But of course, it's a classic Howlin' Wolf tune that was also penned by Willie Dixon. And it's actually a play on an older theme of Little Red Rooster, which goes back to the 20s and 30s, where it was actually just a line about, if you see my little red rooster, please send him on home. Ain't had no peace in the barnyard since my little red rooster's been gone. And that was really the only line in a song that they spoke of a real little red rooster, and then Willie Dixon just lifted that and kind of made a whole song around it. And Howlin' Wolf recorded it. And then when Howlin' Wolf went over to England, he ended up recording an album in England called the London Sessions, where he had Eric Clapton with him, and he had Bill Wyman, the bass player from the Rolling Stones, on bass, and he had Charlie Watts on drums. And on that album, I'm pretty sure it's on the CD as well, but it's for sure on the vinyl album that I have, Howlin' Wolf, the London Sessions. And he's playing the Little Red Rooster with Eric Clapton, and he's teaching Eric Clapton how to play the guitar part on the Little Red Rooster. And you can hear Eric Clapton saying, "Well, why don't you play along with us? Because I can't fucking play it unless you're playing it along with me." And you hear Howlin' Wolf say, "Oh no, come on, man. Like, you know how to play that. You're good. You're a good man. You know how to play it." And then you hear Howlin' Wolf say, "Okay, well, what you do is you do this." And then he jumps in with the boom. And then Howlin' Wolf plays a few chords of it and shows him how to play it. And then you hear Eric Clapton play it. And then boom, they go right into the song. And it's a great version of that song, actually.
Oh, cool. I'll have to shop around for that.
Yeah, it's very good.
Yeah, that's a bit of rock and roll history. Right, Whiskey, it's gone 11 o'clock.
Yeah, I think it's time to wind it down here for today. We've been going for just over an hour here.
No, the now or never, because as you know, our conversations can go long on into the night.
That's right, and you were up late last night when we were chatting, and it's already 11:15 your time there. So,
but Yeah, we'll have to have it. Well, we're hoping to interview people who are into the blues and listen to the stories
Yeah,
because
as we move ahead, Monk and I are constantly talking behind the scenes to one another, with one another, trying to expand different ideas of things that we can bring to this channel. And one of the suggestions that Monk came up with was interviewing some local musicians in our respective areas and sort of find out if they're into the blues, and if so, why or why not, and how they came into it and how they became a musician. And yeah.
favorite riffs, favorite sequences, favorite songs, influences, all sorts of stuff. It's an interesting thing because a lot of people, I play guitar, I used to do a 12-bar blues at school, blah, blah, blah. And you think, oh, right, bloody hell, the amazing people. There's a lot of them, a lot of them, a lot of them.
I'm pretty lucky that the big city that's closest to me over in Calgary, just over yonder, down not too far from where I am here, it's actually got a pretty long historical past when it comes to blues and to some extent jazz, especially big band in Calgary, which is surprising to a lot of people because we're kind of thought of as being Nashville North. Up here in Alberta, there's a lot of great country music that's come out of Alberta. Guys like Paul Brandt and well, countless others, George Canyon, and so on and so on. And so we're sort of known as being a country music sort of area in Canada, especially because out here we're in Western Canada, so there's a lot of cowboys and cattle ranches and that sort of thing. But we have quite a deep and extensive blues history as well. And
Cool.
So there's a lot of bands that are local bands that are very steeped in blues. And so, yeah, going forward, we're definitely going to be interviewing and talking to some local musicians. I think that's something that a lot of you fellows out there listening in are going to enjoy. So,
I'm looking forward to it, yeah.
yeah, absolutely. All right, my friends. So I guess we'll wind things down here for today. Any final thoughts before we shut it down for tonight?
Not really. I know that next week I'm going to continue following through with Buddy Guy riffs, and the next step is to break down the solo and try and make that into a lesson.
Great.
If I can.
Yeah, very good. I found an isolated track for Howlin' Wolf of Smokestack Lightning, and another isolated track of Howlin' Wolf Evil, also known as Evil Is Going On. So I think I want to try to upload a video of just me kind of noodling around on my harmonica here, just trying to play along
excellent.
to the isolated track. It's just the backing track. There's no vocal or harp in it.
I'm with you.
Yeah, I want to try to play along with that and sort of brush up on my Howlin' Wolf harmonica playing skills here. And I mean, my voice is not nearly as powerful as the Wolf's. I mean, he was very strong, powerful voice, big booming voice, but I'll do my best.
I'm sure it'll be fun.
Yeah, and that's really, like you say all the time, it's really what it's all about, is just having fun and enjoying the passion and enjoying, the love of this beautiful musical art form.
Yeah, it's just great.
All right, so I think with that, I think we'll wind things down here for today. So, as always, I want to thank all of you fellas in the chat for coming by and supporting us here at Harp and Guitar, People in Music. It's really great to see you guys come out and participate, because I know we're just a small channel here, and we're just kind of doing this for fun and to explore our passions and share some of these passions with some of you fellas that come by, or some of you that listen in later on. So once again, thank you very, very much for all of your support out there, everyone. And if you haven't already, please don't forget to like the stream and share it. And if you get a chance, swing by our channel here, Harp and Guitar, People in Music, and subscribe. And we're constantly uploading new content, whether it's our discussing, like we do here on our blues live streams, discussing blues history, or Monk is playing some of his beautiful guitar and giving you some lessons on how to play certain riffs or different guitar phrasings, or whether it's myself discussing history of the blues, or maybe trying to hack around a bit with my harmonica. So yeah, we try to keep it new and interesting, and constantly putting up new material. So yeah, really appreciate all the support, everyone. So thanks.
Yes, thank you.
So once again, I want to just thank my partner in crime here, Monk Music. Couldn't do it without you, Monk. So thank you very much, my pal. Really appreciate you taking the time this late at night to join me here for our chat, as always.
My great pleasure. My great pleasure.
All
I
right.
love
So,
listening to you. Sorry, pardon me.
no, please go ahead.
No, I say I just love listening to your encyclopedic knowledge of blues. Just great. It's just great,
Well,
Whiskey.
I think
Yeah,
we're a great team because you'll give an example of a riff and play a little bit of it, or play a nice little bend or some tasty little licks, and then it kind of jogs my memory to say, oh, I think that's from so and so who learned from
yeah,
this guy who was influenced from that guy. So we're a great team, I think, with
that is
the
fantastic.
practical applications mixed in with the theory, and yeah,
Yeah,
it's a lot of fun. So
it
so
is. It's
thanks
great.
again. All right, everyone. So thanks again for joining my pal Monk Music and I for another blues chat number 4 here. And of course,
Wow.
as always, we'll try to do at least 1 or 2 of these a month going forward. And like I said, interviews to come and much more content to be uploaded. So please, like I said, subscribe and hit that bell, because sometimes we'll upload 2 or 3 videos in a day. So you might get a nice bombardment of some tasty little treats coming at you from this channel here. Okay, so I think that's going to do it. So thanks everyone for tuning in, and talk to you again real soon. This is Whiskey, and as always, my partner here, Monk Music,
Good night.
harp and guitar. Thanks everyone. Have a good night. Take care. Bye-bye.